다들인데야 알페베 가수다 드린데 감마바 파운데이션기 처리체부터 소머베 드네다 좀 디토리아 페베게 남블링게 소머로리아 예 토마르 쯤지다 드시들이셔야.
First of all, I would like to greet and welcome all of you who have come here tonight to this event created or arranged by the Karmapa Foundation.
드네 안다리디 가수라다 토마 예 고급 디송제네 Karmapa Foundation ki board member tang dana singi dari ki ta arilia tin sumba yuwa ga di 가수다 저지 진행기 레지바 용리야 안 투시샤인 스캬즈기 안다 들이 뒤주디 부르셰 린주산 디나로리아 안 캬즈기 뒤주 막보지다 아나지 가수다 강에 막보지 캐세지도 셰요 린주사 디규센데네 안 캬즈다 안차요 뒤주 막보지 디당 당에 비치도 이미 주산에 들이 고급디 송세 I
would also like to begin by thanking all of the members of the board of the Karmapa Foundation and everyone else who has worked so hard, who has put so much time and so much hard work, who has extended so much of their precious time to enable my third visit to America to occur. Thank you all.
How do you mean expecting which is a shivji? Because Mitsame Martemba, Nesia, or some expecting which over Mishinda get a Martemba, Tangalia, Marcia, or something expectation which someone on the yard. 당원의 집이나 가 집으로 주세 아 참아 집으로 주세 얘기 가수에 니주 상원올리아 지 가수에 강에 참세 투야 그 털는지 말레이시아요 말 나라이네 지 강에 나로 동대교 미르시 링주산에 안 강에 참서 제대로 프로 지지 시아요 말
I suppose everyone is expecting me to say something that they've not yet thought of themselves. But really, we're in much the same position. I cannot solve all the problems there are, as I still have lots of problems myself.
ngaruji ngazi chimbre da zamorole geje ramre geje sheche chimbre tadi kasure chojine lao tadi chojine shebimne tadi kasure sosul da ngarang da thome sheshir chebina zo de ngarang lobjong charum chigdang ngarang le chi lobjong rayarum chigdang dana singi logic raar physics share the ombre and thamar disane energy ngej ma chang gizer share was the chabre when is chashir lich mare the immediate chabre the da gizer ma wo share yin za da ji ma che ji da ga shu ji bu de chi ma do be ji sa ba ru sha share me be sur chi and they do ane kadu yimbine da ji talk che ju san da karar she wena samru chi tambu ade ji talk che ga yon ju san da mu kan ka cha yo ma da ndi she wo sam sam ge yo ma an dang go ro zu ji talk ge ji she da go de ma zu yon ju san ne ane kali ji ka ju re re ni re che che ane sam da che da ji she ya ju ma da ba tambu ne che ji shi che che ane cha zu shi che de ge
The main purpose, at least my main purpose, in this third visit to the United States was to be able to visit this country's great universities. And so far, I've had the precious opportunity to visit 5 of them and have had to give at least one talk at each one. Now, my intention in coming here was to study and learn, but somehow this trip, which from my side was supposed to be a learning experience for me, has turned into more of a series of lectures that I have to give. This was not my initial plan. In fact, at this point, I've given so many lectures that I notice that my talks are somewhat repetitious. I seem to say many of the same things every time I give a talk. I think partly it's because I've had to give so many talks that I don't really have the time to think of anything new to say. And when it's about time to give a talk, I have a hard time thinking of anything really to say. Anyway, I will talk. How about this? I will talk till 8 o'clock, and then we can have questions and answers.
Topic the current we understand or the heart and mind join together. That day, topic there, Damo Mother Yawachi Hakumaso. That in a Tanam Kaswe. Kaswata. Tangian
The topic for this evening is joining heart and mind. This is news to me. I was just informed what the topic is.
That range Chidangi Kaswata, Nazuegi. Azu Chunjun Galia, Lojan Chebe Galia, traditional summer, Sugungi, Aji Kashija, the Lojan Chebe Galia, Azu Shiaji, emphasize Jasummer, Zenduin Shiaji Karshus, Twesam Goms of Sashi. That Twesam Goms of Sadinane, Twesam Nibudi Paji, artificial understanding, that the touching to artificial understanding being a bioma the Imbina, that artificial understanding of share. That in a goms Sidusane, Tenjevu under Twesam, Susegi energy Tube to Entelia, the Subship Chabas of the Masebe, that did Susugi, Gulia, Yamyon Kiava Chadang, Susu Gulia, Kumji Chaji. That day, the final session of the project, Tamadelia, Tindiji Yongwarji, as with that, Zendur.
In the type of traditional education that I underwent when I was young, the main emphasis is on the threefold process of hearing, thinking, and meditating. And the knowledge one gains through hearing or study and thinking or analysis is in a sense somewhat artificial. It's not entirely artificial, but it is primarily not experiential, rather more theoretical. It is with the third step, meditation, that we actually begin to gain a direct experience of what we have read or heard and familiarize ourselves with the direct experience. And that finally, that direct experience and growing familiarization is the final or ultimate emphasis of the training.
Meditation levels on a goms and Mimauja Samle Naloleaji G. Kashurapa G. Something focus challenge. Yana G. Kashur relax challenge, Trinity Samlena Kore. Even an associated meditation sat, Jigoma image. Meditation sat the Susugi, Yamsulambe, Tendadi, and Susugi. Mizinang Chashir Chatwaji. 소수기 초연한 차시를 차도야 지당 텔레야 지 소수기 콤신 집을 차 텐데지리야 아주 관행이야.
When we talk about meditation, especially when we use the English word meditation, people often imagine that we're talking either about a process of learning to focus our mind sharply or a process of learning to relax. But we actually mean something more than that when we talk about meditation. We mean the process of bringing something into deeply felt experience, so that it becomes an object of feeling, not just knowledge, something that we apply in our lives, and something that we become more and more familiar with.
링이 주사는 아주 시야디 타마르 주사는 엔지 소수기 장샤베기 이기 나지장 말이바 상로 소수기 네 가서 되지 이토 이게 나부 자매바 되지 소수기 셈토기 에너지 냠뇽질이야 줄도바샤당 에네 직디 소수기 미지기 차시질이야 줄도바샤디 나주기다 가서 미조 차례.
Therefore, our main goal in this type of training is that what we study and practice be not simply something we have studied or read, something we know theoretically, but something that we have experienced in our heart and that therefore changes our whole life.
응원계다지 가르러 아주기 다 담반남기 명아로 지 가려어렸으나 아주 지 로정차 창로 지 냠내차 창로 아니지 니마 드링기 저유이 맞지 다가들 니마 드링이야 냠내차로 지당 아니지 수수기 가르에 안다를 수수 미기 뒤에 예배 미지된 제바체시 가서 다들지 수수 로정 세샤바 대당 미지디 컨디치 제바체고요 아니 수수 로정 세샤바 뒤토안에 아주 저분이는 따당 당 아니지 지 가서 아주 여기 미지기 듀마 somar 미지기 듀람 따당 뒤지 토알이미나 아주 배주 여버지당 디 가르다 펜토여버지
So when we study the instructions of our holy forebears, we do so in order to be able to apply these instructions in a very practical way in our daily lives, to gain actual experience of them, so that they influence our lives, that they influence our view of the world, and actually our path into the future.
Under Hindustani, as a spiritual practice, penal Lagmarvetaji, Jerry, Cheshaw, and Summer, the Chadi, Susugi, Takandarji, Chehan, and Lolia, Yamlecha, that is Susu Gomjas, and Lolia, Yamlecha, that is Chehan, Chilolia, Yamlecha, Gomjas, Chilo, these are what about Gage, energy Susu, the Nimachigina, Lagachevical in area. 가는 신기 직강의 체베 걸리네 디두스단에 아주 배제예요 지금 디두 걸리야 다 간데 지금 인도 사업게 하듯이 근데 펜도요 같이 지금
Our spiritual practice, therefore, cannot be limited to what we do in our shrine rooms or place of formal meditation. We must bring it outside the walls of our shrine or selected sacred space. Bring it into our workplace, and especially bring it into the problems and apply it to the problems that we face. The point of spiritual practice is that we develop a greater courage to face challenges.
참인지기 냠래래야 투주 매버지 투주기 제바 매버지 restriction 매버지 그도 의미네야 데 냠래 차야 되지 아도 되지 가서 과도 개좀 차
Therefore, the most important form of spiritual practice is the cultivation of love and compassion. And there are no time restrictions on these practices, because love and compassion are always needed and always applicable.
참바다 니지 공경기 가사를 대지여지 아니 공규기 참바니지 사도 가져대 여지 그래서 참바다 니지다 공경 가사데 버룰이야 지 가서에 갭 가지지기 다 파르동 가지지 르네 여비네 그지지기 아니 참바다 니지 냠랜디 아니 야보 처음에 가지지기 nye 여지가 아 타마를 주스다는데 지 송주고 소리 차지 지 냠소 랭기기 가사 지다 냠소 랭유기 참바데 니지사 수도 매버치지 냠소 렘바보 코랑 아니 참바데 니지 등이 참바데 니지 딱 한다 정신으로지 주버 체과데 이렇게 좀 잘해요.
It's often said that the practice of love and compassion consists of closing the gap between the practitioner and the practice. As long as there is a great distance between the person meditating on love and compassion and actual love and compassion, their meditation has not been very successful. We need to steadily close that gap until there is no difference between the person meditating and the love and compassion that they seek to cultivate, until the person becomes a true embodiment of love and compassion.
Replaced by the shen of that the champagne somebody and socio casualty identities or the Kadaji Tidan Java the case of
We are normally shockingly selfish in our self-fixation, and this is what we need to change. We need to replace our identification with an obsession with ourselves to an identification with an empathy toward others. We need to replace our selfishness with benevolence and altruism.
and shen la dene ka shu chung de che za da sa de and shen gi da cha she so shi and sha de.
Our selfishness is based upon the misconception that what we think of as I or me has an independent existence. But in fact, no one exists independently of others. It would be far more accurate to say, I exist to such an extent in dependence on others that I am really just a part of others. We need to understand interdependence, including our interdependent connectedness with others. And in fact, mere understanding of this is insufficient. We need to experience it feel it, and recollect it.
드린주다 가르에 진제다 찍을 찍되다 찍을 찍 제가 차는 여비 민주산 디 균선을 때네 에너지 가르에다 장의 진지 체험는시 에너 시에는 진지 사데 오늘 체빈다 시에는 장의 진지 체험 균선 여는시 시에는 진지 체험 균선데 장기 강기 용다
To the extent that we actually feel our interdependence, that each one of us depends upon all others, and our interconnectedness, that we are each connected to all others, we will understand the reason why it is as valid to cherish others as it is to cherish oneself.
대야 망부치리야 다지 시엔의 진지 차데 시엔의 제배왕기 진지 차바마이 봐 다 타나양지 랑의 제배왕기 시엔의 진지 차과로 가르잖아 아니 랑 야부치 연구나 아니 시엔 야부 뭐용이야 랑 야부 용화 사디 용화 매비 인두산에 디 균선데네 시엔의 제배왕기 시엔의 제배를 진거바데 뭐 마고바 시에 마고바 임바점도 마세베기 랑의 제배 균선도 제배이네요 아니 시엔의 제배는 진거하디 개점이 인두지
While it is obvious that it is worthwhile to cherish others for the benefit of those others, it is perhaps less obvious but equally true that we must cherish others if we cherish ourselves. Because none of us can actually survive alone. We survive in dependence upon one another, and therefore it is only by serving others that we can ever serve our own needs.
칼라시 무슨이다 마젠디 남주지 칼라사디다 마젠디 자첨 임르지다 아주 신다지 수수 칼라사디 개체체마 마젠디라 주도식 말마다 꼭 가르인 가르미 마젠 수임이 아주 변나 사가지 침비나 칼라디 사중로마다 칼라소니 마젠디 컨트리미 디고라 아주 심제다 심구스케 치가만 이비네디 칼라소니 마젠디 나서 법에 서로지 갱에 근데 충분히미나 아주 칼라드라고 말아 칼라드 말아도 아니 에너지 마젠들 상로 마다라 칼라드 말아도 신이 다시 소술이야 강에 태연이 산데 임생 가르래도 따연데 마젠디 나서 법에 때 에너지 임바데 신이 하고지 동원에 아주 임생 상로 마다라 말 된도 딱 한다라 Think
about how we relate to food. When we eat delicious food, we often utterly ignore the fact that someone cooked it for us. We may have no curiosity about the cook, no interest in the cook. For example, when you go to a restaurant, you go there thinking about the food you're going to eat and what you want to select. You're not thinking about who is it who actually did the hard work of cooking this. And yet, were there no one to cook your food, you would not have food. I suppose if we were dying of hunger because all the cooks stopped cooking or we couldn't find anyone to cook, then all of a sudden we would realize the importance of a cook and we might say, where have all the cooks gone? Because at that point, it would be in our self-interest to do so. So generally, we ignore anything that does not pertain to our immediate self-interest.
And susugi kandarji self-interest sanandrado self-selfish samaro the tilebe geche ronamado and di samade kwade kala khamsha din jeba di hakumendo di pendo di mishinda jeba kan cha di yobdi hakumare mishinda pendo kan yongdi di yobdi hakoda kala khamdo.
Sometimes it's not obvious or apparent to us the degree to which we are connected to others, the degree to which we are all dependent on one another. We are so limited by our self-interest that we don't see this, we don't think of it. So we need to cross beyond the boundaries established by our self-interest, extend ourselves beyond the field of our immediate self-interest. And only by doing so will we be able to effectively interact with and be of benefit to others.
세상 아주기 따디라디 가서래 낭수기 아샤지가 아주 봐 따수기 있으면 낭수에서래 가서를 따디 아솔은 낭외기 애는 가대다 퇴용mom에기다 아사죠 퇴용mom에 가서 말하다지 the reality 가 우리니즈 토리아 아사디 this 개발여도 돼 아주 생각하지 아주 낭수에 좀 이제만 접치지 퇴용mom에 토리아 예수 가르쳐요 돼 즉 삼동과데 awareness 과데 개좀 시작하죠 understand yeah good job.
There is a big difference between the apparent self or I and what is actually there. And unless we learn to recognize that difference, we will not be able to extend ourselves beyond our obsession with the mere appearance of an I.
다나 생각을 배는 들어도 배는 아메리카 들어질 도저히 기억을 세상 알아도 되지 갈라칸 성기지 relatively somewhat 다지 튕기엔도 야고 시작해 다 튕기엔도 야고 예버디 아니 가서지 다 간다를 찍을 되지 나 가면 망고질이야 되지 어디가 알아 배는지 아솔리아 돌로지 예버디 마체지 롱본디네 쇠샤메 롱보신다지 아메리카 마이바 롱보신다지네 쇠샤 주시다 다나지디 송겐데서 임비냐 딱강에 먹고 싶지 예버체 안 코즈기 다 참성에 정도 코즈기 누구되냐 기부된 아주 당대 버지 누구 다 코즈냐 다 이면지 돌로 괜히 될지 론체야 돼 아주 론체를 소식 아 근데 야 먹고 자요 어디 가래 근데 이 비주얼 때네 아주지 awareness 거 sab awareness 서머베다 들리지 과디 안다 아주 다 점블링이 돌려야다 계속 쉽 차디 알았어
America, of course, is an extremely powerful and very prosperous country with all sorts of resources and luxuries. And yet, even amidst this, we need to become aware of our dependence on others. For example, most of the clothes we wear are not made in this country, they're made in other countries. And they're often made under extremely unpleasant and arduous circumstances, which makes me think that we are enjoying the pleasant fruit of others' suffering. We need to gain an awareness of global realities like this in order to be responsible citizens of this world.
그러니 주산에 지금 경구를 써야 돼. 가수에다지 니지 영화 시절부터 아주 경구를 써봐. 지금 경구를 써봐. 대양 경구를 써봐 대양 지금 아주지 가수에다지 경구를 써야지 많이 봐. 대 경군도 써봐. should 많이 봐. 아니 want 써. 다들 지금 경군도 써봐. 좋아다 제베 경군도 써봐. 가다 니지 And
with regard to responsibility, a healthy sense of responsibility is grounded in compassion. We don't undertake responsibilities simply because we should. We undertake responsibilities because we want to. We do so joyously because we feel, because we are concerned, because we are compassionate.
sympathy empathy understanding more involvement more dedicated somewhere. That's it. Dana sing more action, take action somewhere. That's the individual. And the individual is Dona Rani, the Kasa, the Chashir Church, the Nature Tone, Susuki, Takanda Ning Tawane, Tona Samus gave Chewade, Kesamister.
Compassion is much stronger than mere sympathy or empathy, merely feeling something about others' sufferings. It is more involved than that. It is being willing to undertake a true involvement, it is dedication, and it is much more active. It is feeling that others are part of you and you are part of them. It is a heartfelt emotion.
That this young Chablia, the condition Nancy, responsibilities of the Ginkurgi somebody Chismshik chair, you mean, that del rally de Chigdang, and Danasing Ginkurgi, Ningdobdi, Chismshik chair, you mean, tell rally de Chimbi into Sun, Tigus and Dana, Ginkundu, Ginkurgi Sambata, Ginkurgi, Ningdobdi, and Ninji Tawanuchi. Chadi user.
I think, therefore, that the willingness to undertake responsibility, the sense of innate responsibility for others, accompanied by courage, the courage to joyously bear that responsibility, are necessary roots of compassion.
Then that equal down on Mangosia, the Shemose, that Hamadelia, Marangi, Mizilo, you that Jeche, and the Candice, Susu Mizina Lolia, Takaswe. The Chabadin is the understanding the Mayama, that is Susugi, Yamner of the Candice, you may, Delia, and also Candice, you may take all and do shines.
I'm not going to go on about that, however. I want to talk a little bit about experiential love and compassion as opposed to mere understanding, using some of my own life experiences as an example.
Me Manguchi, come up big, it's hard the country, but come up as Kurgi, Sonan country, imagination channel, the Kalakabursure. Near Chile, you near the Alia Junto Moshev, the Zugi imagination channel, the Kalakabstado, Jezan, Oma Singe, Chidang, the me, Jimmy and Jimina, the Lawardo, and imagination chatter, the Kalakabstado.
Many people wonder what it is like being the Karmapa, what it feels like to be the Karmapa. Well, I think it's very, very hard for anyone to imagine. I think it would be hard even for those who know me well to imagine, let alone for anyone else.
Lo, that I get you the Chidong you go Kongala again, and that Lord Dung Barulia, and see, so symbolism, Pabanizing, that's what gets Debra. I chung to I gave a Golia, Tang's hand of Cashichonis, Dashi Betan of Cashichon. Says I see injuries are to be good injuries, did it say to Yamata. Injuries. That Kandria, the Industan, so a human of gets Debra. Says I'm the eagle. Again, the Lord Dungubur, Soadi, Susu Mizina, or this Kashwataji Jetta maybe, that under Kashwaji. All the Soa. Cup did you the Chingmar, that is some positive Yasi Kashway, Yana Yandu di Kasha Miss the Chicados.
I was born in 1985, and until I was 7, my life was fairly simple, and my feelings, my experience was pretty ordinary, pretty simple. There were some auspicious signs surrounding my birth, which caused people to assume that I was a tulku of some kind, but they didn't particularly know who. So for my first 7 years, I had a kind of experience that is hard to describe, but all I can say is that nowadays, looking back on it, I repeatedly find myself missing it.
다른 롯 유니알레 베거리아 아니 그러다지 가마베 search parties 가마베 쳔게의 그룹이 아주 롱발레브레 그래서 아주 롱바디 롱고르지레 롱고 저단지는 고수 배바르 봐 제가 용해도 배바르에 인비랑 아주 디스 기지 시두산 겁다 트요면 고수디 아주 남유 칠로미터 잡으셔야 말 제가 고수 센트럴 티베트니 용비 인상 고수 기지 시두산 기규르조 기시야 다가나 롱롱을 도시야 제자는 까마비 임버를 도시야브레 다 되게 까마비 임버 되게 다 간다 참으로 서프라이즈 예, 다 파마 이내도 롱베미 이내에 참으로 서프라이즈 체제 수직레디 30다 similar 30다 and the expectation 수직레 아마라서.
Then when I was 7, the search party that was looking for the reincarnation of the Karmapa arrived. Now, where I lived at that time in Tibet was a particularly isolated part of Tibet in the east. And since the search party were coming primarily from central Tibet, they spoke so differently from the people where I was living that we had to have someone translating. We couldn't really communicate with one another very well. But anyway, they said I was the Karmapa, and this surprised all of us. It surprised my parents, my siblings, all of us. Everyone was surprised. We were utterly unprepared for that.
Then, that Karmapa music escape chair, Pajichame, Carresana, the Karmapa music chidano, Shiraga, ruled of the Demashibu, the Candestra, Karmapa Gundi, Kukomandigi, the Koran Kiawajima Kawalengi, Nadigi, Sajo Kawalengi, and a Pameming country, but and a logically with some detail of Cheshire, that the escape chair, Kauruba.
However, there was no escaping from this recognition, because the basis for my recognition as the Karmapa was the letter left by my predecessor describing my birthplace, the names of my parents, and the year of my birth. And since they all matched, there was no way for me to get out of this. I remember thinking when I was very young, I would like to ask the 16th Karmapa why he picked me. But of course I couldn't, because he had already passed away. And then I thought, well, at least maybe if I'm the Karmapa, I'll get a lot of toys and a lot of friends to play with. But it didn't work out that way.
Me, this senior ganga, she got serious ganga. That did it, Yamdo, that's a
So I was brought to the monastery, and normal children are surrounded by other children with whom they play and learn together and so on. Well, I didn't have that. There were no other children around me. I was surrounded by a lot of really old people who were very serious, I would even say dour.
다들이 강해지게 아니 소소지 파마다 카테지 다 간다 까마바레스 까마바 인사 다 가져레스 근데 가져를 되어라 서비스다 조시제 다들이 제브레 안드리 인주산다 마시 표를 대베 걸이야 로직이야다 팅지니 근데 투야 고급을 줘야래 다 임비내야디 로직시 걸이야데 표에다 카테지 안 야가리 용바래 근데 로직이 투야 로직 팅지니 투야 고급대 매차
I was also separated from my parents because the people who found me said, well, he's the Karmapa, you have to give him to us. But while I was still living in Tibet, at least I had the opportunity to see my parents once or twice a year. But after I left Tibet at the age of 14 and went to India, I also became separated from any chance of seeing my parents.
아니 다드네 야알레는 로장을 침브레 딱가는 니즈 마우샤 총브레 딱 간다르다 디디지기 가지고 당의 제니를 니지레 다드리 제제 디나로를 지 수수기데 가지고 클리클리시제 안 당부도 개요 말 클리클리시제 에너지 수수기다 까마바 제아디 고급들지 미신달이야 펜도치야 고급들지 이번에 나랑 통브레 이제서 미망부 제게 안을 저를 치가래 저와 저기 인주산 소수용면에 입니다. 다 간다르지 가지고디 고급의 직통 다음에 미신다기 저와 있는 지 망부지 소소리야. 저와 망부 충분히 인상 텔레덴제 아니 소소용면에 다지 가지고 셴페 주야기 던 듬바세는 나도 셴페 주야리야 지 몇번지 클릭을 충분해. 림디 충분해.
I've been living in India for 15 years. During that time, a lot of stuff has happened, and that's basically been my journey. Gradually, over time, I came to view my position as the Karmapa as an opportunity to help others. People like me, they place their hopes in me, they have faith in me, they love me. So this has fostered in me a great interest in using my position and what ability that gives me to be a real help to others and to the world.
거두고 소화 매버를 듣지 말아요. 거두 소화 첨부야. 다는 신기 미신달이야지 강에 매버 즉 안하려다 간다. 간다 미신다게 또 미신다 강에를 제비 있는데 즉 강에의 셰치서를 줘도 당에 강에의 술 셰치서 개매서 다 간다 강에디 다 간다 즉 라다 개번냐버를 지리야 셰치보다 까마버성이 신다를 주는 즉 셰를 주다 되게 가라하고. 아 민주스탄에 하다들이 간다지 제아디에 소다지 시행을 펜버르지 되지 중나 사버르지 아 대야지 소소 나바인 비견선을 되네 아더 셴벤 루그르사 되지 마임베세 아니 소소닝 타바네 에너지 시행을지 자와르지라 시행이야 펜버르지 줍토는 사버르 다들지 사버르지 도시제 코체 넘버스
I've learned to willingly accept the challenges I have to face and use the opportunity I'm given to help others. But I'm not saying that I don't have feelings, that I don't go through ups and downs, that I don't get sad. I do. I experience the same sort of feelings and ups and downs as everyone else. The difference between me and everyone else is everyone else has at least one person with whom they can share their feelings, share their problems. I don't actually have anyone with whom I can share my feelings or my problems or my challenges. So I try as best I can to help others, and I really want to. It's not just because I'm a Buddhist or because I have this position. That's what I really want to do.
understanding zamayibata di chi kandeche sadi ta kandarji kashore understanding di ingdobla kandeche gyurma gyusa ta kandarji ngazu mizina lore chidan chemde mitsang lore ya ta nge samle ngarang ki case di thon samtabida ta chorang kama ba rechi 고급지 첨부지 때 인상 안다 디 소수 진 게 소술이야 게 지어봐대 하고 recognize 아주 미상으로 되는 시래 오늘 시장 아주 상으로 오른 게 상으로 찍고요 나를 예배는 시 상으로 된 게인데요 예비는 아소리야 지 딩게인데 예바대 하고야 고급은 디기 차게로 좀 정도 인사 아주 그 뒤에 있는 데지 게인지 예바증 아주 초고요 말에 소나양 아주 이그노를 시켜래 땅에 케스텔이야 다디 세브시 차래 저라는 게인데 요레스 예바대 하고 예바는 신 이그노르네 치다 매비 디 준세데네 다디 충분히 진짜 세상 아주 상으로 지고를 시킨 거지 어떻게 비슷하네 어디래다 다디 제리아 초트네
This is how I would explain, using myself as an example, a compassion that is not merely understanding or understood, but that is courageously applied in our lives. This was brought home to me by the fact that people will actually say to me, "You're the Karmapa, you have a tremendous opportunity to help others." And this has inspired me to recognize the responsibility that I bear to help others to the best of my ability. But that responsibility is by no means unique to me. This is true of all of us. We all have the same responsibility to help others and to better the world in which we live. We normally are unconscious of it, since no one reminds us of it. And when we occasionally have twinges of feeling, maybe I should be doing something about this and so on, we've learned to ignore those feelings or suppress them. Well, the only difference in my case was that because my position has made my responsibility glaringly clear to me, I've had no opportunity to ignore it. But I would say that the responsibility itself is something that we all share. And having said that, I invite your questions.
Okay. Questions? How to choose question? I don't know. Oh, just stand there. Okay, yes. Please.
Your Holiness,
Yes.
I'm Cynthia.
I'm Catherine.
We're sisters, and we actually have a very similar question. So maybe we'll ask a few questions, and you can answer whatever you want. We were both very curious about your travels with the students in the universities, wondering what you were hoping to learn. I feel a little bit sad that you didn't get to learn maybe, and you're now teaching a lot on this trip. But what were you hoping to learn? What were your experiences like with the students?
And I was just wondering, because you had such a different growing up experience, if you relate to any of the students you meet and how you relate to them.
다치당가 살론 소설이 very traditional 말은 traditional 살론 총벌에 레인주산에 미망고질이야 curious 말은 다지 나들 traditional 지난 살론 총벌지 molding student is 데바치아드 컨디션 총벌에서 또 이번에 내 섬래야 다 지당 알아는 유니지 갈래 수부디 traditional 지 살론 총벌에 되네 샘바디 traditional 지 보면 이미지야 다 간다지 상물로 accept 해야지 open for everything. Samarvata niju chayarchi bezur chigare. And ring be junsan dene. And chi karreda ji susuyunga nimnya and tindu ge ji student na shun ta ngaraine choji ne ngaraine gar lo chujir chagye be sana. And nga su ji mirib lo chujun pinjun chi jiliya ji karro ji pinjun chi jiliya ji karreda ji 대화도 동에 시에레 자르당 다나 신기 섬주 제렌샤다 계시면 싶지 차디 가르 something. 라버도야 아 야갈 대비 거리야. 아메리카의 루루 막 토브래. 아주 아메리카 루루도 토두상 아니야. 소나 치슈지 가르쳐줬잖아. 지단 쿠란 소리야지 가르래. 딩듀기 신기 로종 지 제토비 지 가르래. 여버전 마세베 그수기 가르지. 마음베 지소당 점블링기 마음베 체대입니다. 그래서 심구를 시작해야지. 지금 그 스타로디 가심으로씩 안다나 신기 그래서 맞아요. 그 수수기 점블링디 야고지와 체 수수용에 가르쳐 도임에 리지기다 간다 좋아지기입니다. 그 질이야 삼분인데 뜬거여 버리지. 근데 초도서 근데 이 유저된 텔레데는 알아야는 베지 된대지 저와 첨부지당 안는 가수라다지 가서 첨부를 시작 좀 없어. 다들 인기다.
Well, naturally, the students with whom I've conversed are very curious about what my, to say the least, very traditional upbringing has been like. While I am thoroughly steeped in tradition, I would say that my body has been steeped in the tradition, but I've tried to keep my mind open-minded and broad-minded. And another thing that makes it very easy to relate to modern American university students is that, don't forget, I'm still quite young. And so my age is not that different from theirs, and so we have a natural affinity, a natural ability.
Some people think I'm 900 years old.
Teasing. A natural ability to openly exchange our experiences and exchange our views. Especially in India, I've met with a lot of American university students, and my main experience has been to be somewhat inspired, very impressed to the point of feeling inspired, not just by the sophistication of their studies, but the vast concern for the future of this world, of this planet, that they exhibit, and their active and serious interest in finding practical ways to help this world and better this world. That's what they talk about, that's what they ask about, that's what they think about. And this has given me a great hope for the future and has inspired me.
Thank you.
나는 골고 영이 뭔가 상심 기질도 나 답죽진 또 카르탄키니한테 관보체 좀더 준제 또 이따다 조금은 보고지요. 이나 니 빨라디 늑빠지긴다. 그거 종송 그거 딱바랑인도 손음 그 조지 말이 직삼도 가리나 봐. 말라 무슨 근자까지 나오르게.
Okay. Did Jed Tona? Did Jed Tona? Okay. Oh, that is difficult to translate that. Next. Oh, okay. Please.
Having a guru is necessary to be on the path, and that's a very personal connection. Now, with the digital age, it's possible to communicate with many people simultaneously. Manlams and teachings can be simulcast and reach many people all over the globe. As you're using these tools, do you consider there is a danger to the teachings as well as an opportunity?
Okay. Tadi dari andang jidangi kasurada ji. Tende kasuradi. Right, that those lam jung ta. Tadi jidang nga sugi ji jawa tab der le la chu. Tadi indus ta ding an su ji kasure. 다 미망고지 배나 디네단 등 아주 용디가 배나 미망고지 되게 가수에 다지 배나 아주 야갈 대회가 미망고지 야갈 용토야 미망고지 벤저 튕게면 용토야 말 가시 위자라가 근데 인도스탄에 미망고지 용도에는 용모도 내주 도 차려야 근데 그냥 차이가 인도스탄에 엔지 라이브 웹카스트 내가 터네 엔다지 소셜 토발라서 같은 데지 좋아하대 그걸 데버 샤토야 다 임비냐 이나야 가수라다지 오늘 전에게 지 최근 데버사 데지기 아주 지금 다들 고급을 지금 아주 토고 가래 이미는 다지 년대지 랍샤 당보대라
Well, first of all, the use of live webcasts and to some extent social media, as well as the internet in general, has brought a real benefit for many people because, for example, in my case, I live in India, and when teachers live in India, there are many people in other countries who simply cannot afford or cannot easily get a visa to go to India. And in such cases, live webcasts and so forth give them an opportunity to share in the Dharma, to share and form a connection with the teachings that they might otherwise lack.
이미는 오늘은 지금 라마들 로맨 제바사데 든지지게 가수라듯이 가르슬라우 다시 제바 줌을 좀 해야지. 다들 초전에 줌을 좀 하다. 소셜 미디어 당 오늘 전에지 대야지 가수라다지 고야 디베 띵 사모지다. can sort of can feel it, can touch it. someone that did go ade 다 쉽게 좀 차려. 타나야 다 간다지 가수야지. 디지기다 무슨 그 제버도 과데 쉽게 좀 차려. 지당 아주 남기 베너지 소소기 패밀리 멤버 데데 냠도 니마 딱 바르지 계시에 되비네. 다시 소셜 미디어 통 계시에 되비네. 오늘 투버데다 개발시타요. 근데 이 디균zel 때네. 하는 아주 이게 대zam기 이 샘플 맞을지지. 오늘 전에 단 저버디 something we can 가르쳐다 touch it, feel it. 근데 그 과도 쉽지. 타니고 같이 주면. 근데 그 과도다 계속 쉽지 않아요. 다디 아주 근데 가르쳐야지. 소소기 지 왕부터 그 서로를 영어로 줄 거야 돼. 다 계속 잘해요. something those. 다디 가르쳐는 very personal, very 가르쳐다지. 다지 소소기 오늘 전에 저항 엄마들 저기.
The particular matter of the connection between a guru and the disciples, this connection cannot be artificial. It has to be real. So it has to be a much deeper connection than one can easily gain through social media. Because it is a matter of feeling. It is a connection that is almost tangible and deeply touching. And it has to be, therefore, direct. To give you an analogy for this, even though distant family members may communicate with one another daily by means of social media, they will still make the effort to visit one another in person because they want that immediacy, that intimacy, a proximity of connection. There's simply more feeling in person. So in the same way, the relationship between a guru and a disciple is that personal and therefore requires a personal interaction face to face because that will allow for the intense feelings which are part of the relationship to develop.
Okay, this way.
Your Holiness, this question is about the arts. And the more I kind of learn about Tibetan culture, learning about, people that don't study in a monastery, there's so much, there's singing, there's dancings, festivals, and the art being a vehicle for Dharma. And my question is, how can you see us creating that in the West, creating a society where Dharma isn't just talks, but the same kind of joyful expression as a vehicle? Sometimes I think in the West it can get very serious and almost tight.
Tadi must active summer. Tadi subudi mina this chikaro tadi this chikaro lugi tangdab da anaji ngagi jebada tesuda digitally susugi da kandarji semgi da kandarji kasure de gawada semgi dewada adana chambada inji de soba subunum juton pa ten tane yana bin simje shanla ya migdawe gawliya migdien bina aji chambada inji dan jewegon migdawe bisana ko migdia message shengi yuan chobar jidang energy ji shengi shenla zawa yebeta kandar kaswe dansuyen ru chasan dingo ni jusa di gyunsen den de active go da shibji ke 좀 차려 마다지 최냠내 자데 nhập be de de so da sig samdan de so busu do de 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 mai bachi must active samara da ni jusa 별이야지 최단 제외기 참자래 다는 최단 제외기 루단 가다 망보셔래 이게 상월로 되지 가지고 최디 다가시 코벤 삼류 지디 랩다 가지고 되지 배샤오 많이 봐 아주 실은 거 체체 되지 도안에 수술 융아 이숨디 간다를 가지고 되지 better military na shiri da military de mime ge longdong jil de yar de yimne khurang da ji simjian la zewe samba dang lama tedung ge samba de ba lu lang yong de sa ka da shi ji ge da da ji khuru tham je le ji kong ge lu yi ga ju dang da de kya ba shung go re de ga da active shi cha de active ga da ke ju de ji pen do ya yao yu.
Yes, because
yes.
Dharma practice is not, in reality, the narrow thing that we imagine it to be. We often imagine that Dharma practice consists of sitting quietly, alone, as still as possible, thinking about the same things over and over again until you fall asleep. Dharma practice is much more than that. It is much more active. It involves the articulation, expression, and even embodiment of Dharma in body and speech, physical movement and expression. Even the way that you look at other beings is supposed to be with a loving glance or loving gaze. So therefore, as you mentioned in your question, it has become very much part of Tibetan culture, embodied by the dance in both ritual and secular forms and so forth. The point is that Dharma is not something to hide inward. It's something to extend yourself outward with in body, speech, and mind. To use Jetsun Milarepa as an example, even though he lived in isolated retreats, he still came down to interact with people by singing his songs and filling the areas where he was with the message that he communicated. So, yes, because Dharma must be active.
Okay.
Hi, Your Holiness. It's an honor to ask you a question. How do you balance helping others with also taking care of your own needs? And what advice would you give to a Dharma practitioner who is studying to become a healer, a therapist?
Tadi ye maguchi ore tadi thangbu di first step samar bade chenyam na kare chebina thangbu di ji warm yourself samar bade ji susu li ya ji taji digi ge sona ro ji da chugi ge sona ro de ba de kesh bishta ya sha bena chamba de inji sa di nga zu nam yuni ji se de sa chamba de inji ji de sa na nge chamba che ba de mission da ishe da ro ji nge chamba che de 미신다게 다지 accept 해야 돼. 저도 try to understand somewhere 다지 소소하게 잠니지 해야 돼. 미신다게 accept 해비나 아니 소소 잠니지 해야 될이야. 진탕여야 되지. 디 accept 마세비나 이제 진탕매야 되지. 다 이미는 원하는 제비나 다디 거야. 잠바든지 사디 카칠다 점아이바. 다분에는 잠바든지 진탕으로부터 소소 쉐브지. 잠바든지 간다지 최근부터 소술이야 레버치지. 드리지 다 최대 미신다를 떼고 하듯이. 소술하고 사고차지 미신다를 최 떼더지. 떼더지. 드리지 그거 봐. 맞아 소술하고 장무시에 미신다리야. 근데 힐링 제거서나 갈아가고 싶다래. 인도산에 지미지 얘네야 소술하고데 타워에 붙여야지. 근데 미신다 힐링을 붙여야면 근데 미신다 레 투지디 용토래라. 텔레장 개시에도 당부 소술이야. 되게 다 투지를 용토래 삼정도.
I think the first step in helping others is to develop a warmth toward yourself. And if you have warmth toward yourself, then you actually just have to extend that same warmth toward others as well. Otherwise, when we think of love and compassion as things we can only feel for others and not for ourselves, then they become very conditional. They become very dependent upon people's reaction. We feel that our love and compassion is valuable if others accept it and valueless if they don't. It is more a matter of becoming warm, becoming a warm person, and then allowing that warmth to radiate outward. For example, if you want to warm others' hands on a cold day, first your hands have to be warm. If your hands are cold, you won't be able to warm anyone else's hand by holding it. And this, of course, is all the more true for healers.
I just wanted to thank you, Your Holiness, for this lovely, personal, and profound talk and sharing of ideas and thoughts. And I think I speak for everyone here when I say that we hope that the continuation of your journey from here on out involves fewer lectures and more enjoyment, and that we will wait patiently for that little bit in the bottom of the teacup that you will come back and share with us. Thank you very much.